We're good. And the question that we had, we started the show talking about this, and I guess I'll just ask you straight up. How many plays, how much did, especially in the first half, how much did Caleb Williams leave on the field as far as opportunities to throw down the field?
Oh, that's a great question. The first, I mean, like, there, I don't really like, I don't really see that much in the first half, if I'm being honest. Like, the first half, like, was just not, I don't really know what we were running either, which I guess is like kind of another different discussion of, like, there was a play where we had three shallow crossers. Like, you run mesh with two of them, right? The third then would create just like a cluster, and that's exactly what happened. And then we got sacked. So, yeah, I don't know. We were just like getting ourselves into really terrible third down situations. The plays didn't seem right. What's really hard, and I get it because you sit there and you watch the game, right? And the Chicago Bears get just the doors blown off them. And then as a fan, you sit there and it's like, then you hear someone like me kind of like say, like, well, hey, I just don't really know what the quarterback's supposed to do. And I get the frustration of like, no, the quarterback sucked. But like the truth is I don't like this is one of those games that I don't like have a lot where I'm like, oh, Caleb did terribly on these plays. Like these plays, he did horribly. There's a lot where it's just like, I don't know whoever you put back there outside of escapability and creating on your own by elongating the play with a scramble or going and getting yardage yourself. Like, I don't know anybody really who could have been successful. And then it's funny because we were then playing a team where you consistently saw, like, let's call a spade a spade. Nobody on planet Earth watches Caleb Williams and Brock Purdy in warmups and thinks Brock Purdy, that's the more talented guy. But when you look at it from a team game perspective, man, did they put him in some situations where it felt like every slant the Chicago Bears threw was covered up and someone was getting killed after. And it felt like every time the Niners threw a slant, it went for 35 yards. So you tell me the difference. And it's like, we have weapons too. Like, I know people are going to say, oh, they have more weapons. It's like,
What
we
is the
got some
difference?
dudes.
So, what is the difference when they do it?
I just think it's like, and this, I want to like give Thomas Brown time before it's like, hey, an indictment on Thomas Brown, right? Like he's in the worst position possible from a coaching perspective. It's scheme. It's the Niners. The Niners force you into things personnel wise. They force you into coverages, and then the play is coherent to attack the coverage. The thing that I would say that I think I'm seeing, there's ebbs and flows. There's times where when I watch the Chicago Bears, I think, man, we drew up some diabolical stuff. This was perfect. We knew what look we were getting and we drew it up. And there's other times where I'm like, oh, wow, we're just running like a base. We're just running like a preseason play. And guess what? It gets covered up because you're not going against like a bunch of Tim Jenkins out there who are going to be coaches in 6 months, right? Like you're going against actual professional football players who are going to recognize formations and get downhill and take away triple mesh. So to me, it's like, I just think it's and what's hard is last week we had it, right? That's, I think, the most frustrating part is just 1 week ago we had really great play calls against certain coverages. As a quarterback sitting here watching, I could say, oh man, here's exactly where you go with the football. And then this week it's like there's plays where it's like you watch the all 22, but if you watch the all 22 not from like, you can watch it from the Madden perspective and say, oh, look, that receiver's open. But then if you watch it from the perspective of why would your eyes get somewhere as a quarterback, there's not a single route that I can really point to and say, hey, this was a terrible read. There are certain balls, like at the very end of the game, right? He's trying to throw that big dig to DJ Moore. The ball kind of gets undercut. DJ probably still gets his hands on it, but that's too far behind. That's got to be in front. Like there are things that Caleb needs to improve physically. But I just don't see this as a situation where it's like, oh man, there's all this stuff we left from a true scheme perspective. I think there are definitely people open at times, but I don't see how the coverage shell, the blitz look, the protection would equate to really anyone getting to that receiver, in my opinion.
I don't necessarily know that this is what happened. And I don't think it's the case with Thomas Brown. But I do think there are times where people play the 49ers and they try to beat them at their own game because so much of their offense is now the prototype in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a little bit of that happened on Sunday.
I couldn't agree more. I think we played the logo. Like, if I'm being honest, I think we played the logo, and I think we saw a situation of like, it was almost like, and to me, it's like, and then don't even get me going on Vilma. Like, man, I love the former players calling games. I'm a fan of it. But like Vilma sitting there talking about like establishing the run, and it's going to help your young quarterback. It's going to help protection. Meanwhile, we run it on first down, second down, and guess what? We're in 3rd and 8. We get teed off on. It's like, all right, man, come on. Let's be honest. The Bears, we're not a first down, second down, establish the run 22 personnel team. We run the ball effectively, but think about the runs. It's been perimeter run, right? Toss. Or, hey, guess what? We got light. We're in the gun. Now we run inside zone. Like, to me, it's like, I think the way we called it was I think we just called a cautious game. And then by the time we started to let it go a little bit, it was just too late to come back on a really good football team who we couldn't stop. I think if you were going to say anything about Eberflus, where I think we probably saw the most difference was on defense. Like that was maybe
red zone.
I'm sure there's others that I've forgotten, but that was maybe the worst performance I've seen from our defense this year. Which like would make sense, right? If you had a guy who was highly influential in that department and then you leave, hey, are we really setting up for success? I don't know. It's also like, it's so, you guys are probably going through it too. I just like so much hope going into the season. And then we're at this point where I'm like, let's just get the hell out of the season before we fully ruin this kid. Like, that's just like a terrible mindset to have with 4 weeks of NFL ball left. You know what it feels like? And like that feeling in July, you can smell it in the grass, training camps around the corner. We're about to have football every weekend. And then now there's this new feeling I have where it's December and I'm talking about the Chicago Bears and I'm like depressed and I should be happy. Christmas is right around the corner. Instead, it's just a depression.
You're really one of us. Like it's been quick, your transformation, but you've really done it.
Tim, just to confirm how you feel.
I think you're going to spontaneously sprout a Ditka mustache.
No.
You're just going to wake up one day and be like, how did this get here?
But he won't say it in that voice.
Look what I have, my friend.
Somebody send Tim some Garrett popcorn.
Why does my breath smell like Italian beef with giardiniera on it?
Just to confirm how you're feeling, though, I just want to let you know, former Bear long snapper Patrick Manley was just on with us an hour ago and said he wishes he was like Adam Sandler in the movie Click, where he could just fast forward to the end of the season. So it's not just you. I just want to let you know. But looking at what is there to kind of surmise from what we saw, this was my fear about Thomas Brown being the interim head coach and not just focusing on Caleb Williams, the task at hand. If you're looking at these last 4 games, now that you have this San Francisco tape in front of you, what do you want to see going forward? What can they do? Where do they go from here as a team?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer this not exactly how you asked it, which is what I want to see on tape is more of like that first touchdown throw to Rome. Like that is what you can build an NFL franchise around. Rome is the second or third progression in that play. It's absolutely perfect ball placement, back pylon, Rome catches it, toe taps. I just want to keep seeing that because to me, as long as we keep seeing that, it's like, all right, this kid's not fully broken. We just got to get him in a better situation and kind of, let's build this franchise correctly. Those are just the things I want to keep seeing where it's like, okay, hey, the sail that he threw to Rome on the sideline was another great play but to me, it's like the sail drives me freaking nuts. Cause then I get on Twitter and I watch some fan who's like, well, look, DJ Moore's open. It's like, of course DJ Moore's open. The corner is falling off because the ball is in the air.
Threw
like,
it already.
Yes.
I know.
Yes, exactly.
It drives me nuts though, because they think the guy's supposed to keep running like he does when they're playing their Madden game. Which it just makes me so mad because it's like there have been times where Caleb made the wrong read, and we've talked about it throughout this season. But to look at the Niners game and be like, this is why we should have kept Fields or why the pick was Bo Nix or Jaden or whatever. It's just like we're missing a giant piece of the equation, which is actually turns out coaching matters in the National Football League. And even Thomas Brown, like give Thomas Brown credit. Last week, they looked a heck of a lot better than they did under Waldron. Then you fast forward, Like, you can't fix everything in 2 weeks after someone's had 17 weeks to run it into the ground, right? It's like, I don't know. So to me, it's like, I just want to keep seeing on tape where he's making throws that you look at and you go, yes, okay, we still have someone to build off of, and we still have all these physical errors with the footwork that I think we can really address this offseason to get him better. And then let's just start with a clean slate from a football IQ or play development standpoint, because what we do have a lot of is we have a ton of under fire defensive reps, which is great. Now what we need is someone to come in and like actually develop, hey, here's how you're going to operate this offense versus like what I think he has now, which is like a lot of ambiguity, which is just tough to be under center. Like, this is the hardest position in sports to play when you know what you're doing.
And that's why I wanted to ask that question, because I was curious about the offensive line's role in this from start of the season even to now, and how you are weighing that versus what you're seeing from a guy who's ultimately just a rookie quarterback trying to find his way, even if he is
well, that's it. And that's another thing is like the O-line. It's like you sit there and you watch the O-line. There's certain stuff that I wonder what they're getting coached. And it's not like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm an O-line guru, but shoot, man, I could tell you where you need to be in each protection. You know, I've never blocked somebody. You can tell by my build, but I sure as hell know when you're supposed to account for the will linebacker. And we're sitting there and it's like, you know, we have a 3-man slide for 2, and then our center passes and they don't ever recheck with their eyes. Like, you know, the difference between a college lineman and an NFL lineman is college linemen are robots, right? You sit there and if they're supposed to account for 4 down on the will, they're going to only account for 4 down on the will. If the will drops and the mic comes, they ain't picking them up, right? That's a college lineman, and it's not a bad thing. It's just that transition from high school to college to the NFL. NFL linemen, you would expect, hey, if we have 4 down and the will and scat protection, hey, guess what? We're going to account for the 4 down on the will. But if the will kicks the hell out of there, or it's a nickel will and he's plussed on the apex, and the mic comes, we're going to pick him up, because guess what? We're professionals. And we don't do that. So to me, it's like, I don't know what we got coached from a scheme standpoint. And then compound it with, not only do I think we're not doing it correctly schematically at times, I also think we struggle with the one-on-one matchups, right? So that's a different bucket of, hey, do you need to upgrade personnel? Because there's upgrading the scheme, right? But then at the end of the day, you still couldn't have me playing center, right? The best scheme in the world, I can't go out there and play center. I'm going to get ran over every time. So you then need to look at it and say, okay, hey, now we got to upgrade personnel too. Unfortunately for the Bears, we've got issues with both. And then we compound that with a young quarterback where at times doesn't know where his eyes should be, or, you know, we haven't coached him up on the feet. And it just like, this is what then happens, which is when Caleb scrambles around and makes an incredible throw, we all get excited. When Caleb somehow brings them back on Thanksgiving, we get excited. But at the end of the day, we forget we're getting excited about football that's unsustainable to win a championship, which is the only reason we signed up for this league. Like, if we didn't want to win a championship, the Bears should pay nobody. All come be their head coach. We can get a bunch of terrible guys on the minimum and we'll suck, if that's what they want to do. But we're all here to win a championship. And the way that we're playing offensive football is unsustainable to win a championship, because we can all say, well, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, like, yeah, don't get me wrong, there's broken plays that are exciting, but 90% of the time they're operating an NFL offense and they're operating it well. And then I also think, like, championship football, you think about the Bills, you know, Dorsey, how fast did they fire Dorsey, right? Like, it was like, hey, there was 1 or 2 bad games. They can Dorsey, Joe Brady's calling, you know, but the Bears, we let Waldron stick around apparently with no footwork for 13, 12, I don't even know. And then Eberflus can have 4 or 5 of the worst clock managements of all time ever in one stretch.
And there were people arguing that he should still be the coach inside that building. That's the scariest part.
Yeah, well, that's where I mean, this is my biggest fear with the Bears. And I'm not ready to indict the McCaskies because I don't know really anything about the history of who interviews who. But my biggest fear with the Bears is they landed with some of the stuff you now hear about Waldron, is that the committee, who's going to be different on that committee that selected Waldron for a rookie quarterback? And then I also hear like, oh, and they're not willing to pay that much all the time, right? So it's like, well, so we're not just going to go get the top of the market. So now you actually have to be good, right? If you're not going to go pay the top of the market, that's what always cracks me up about business people. You know, we have these great business people that, you know, you have all this money to start. You just go hire the best talent. And they're like, look at that business guy. It's like, okay, well, you don't have to do anything. Like, if you can pay top of market, you're going to be great, right? Go get the best candidate. Awesome. Unfortunately for the Bears, it seems like we're not going to go just pay top dollar. So if we're not, then guess what? We got to actually be good at interviewing coaches, which turns out maybe we're not good at either. So
No,
I don't
maybe.
know.
It's confirmed.
You're sounding real bearish right now.
Yes.
You can tell that I'm
The
really
bearsiness
excited.
is just.
I think
Learning.
that
He's starting to understand.
the dissonance is the problem is the bad on the field is so consistently bad that it leads you to ask why it's so consistent. How is the product on the field this regular in failure? And then you start to work your way up, and now you've gotten to the highest and yet lowest level of the video game, if you will. And you've made it to one of us. I do want to go back to something you said about the Caleb Williams' eyes, because we've talked a lot in the show about eye discipline. Where are you seeing that drop off?
So for him, I don't know. I don't even know if it's a true drop off or, and I know this is crazy to say, I don't know if it's a true drop off or if he's just never really truly been held accountable for it, right? It's like there's simple stuff with, hey, we're trying to work an isolated receiver and we call it forehead frontal, right? Where you put your eyes down the middle of the field to hold the integrity of the defense. So like, let's talk about a coverage. We all know cover two, right? Two split safeties. Boom. They're both covering half the field. So what happens though, if my eyes go to the right in the National Football League? Do we still think that we're going to get the whiteboard version of cover two where the safeties both have discipline and they're both playing half? Or are you going to see professional football players start to lean in the direction that you're going? They're of course going to lean, right? Because they're paid to make a play on defense. So, you know, when you have an isolated receiver, the idea would be have forehead frontal at first to hold the integrity of those guys dropping and then get to your isolated receiver so that there's less catch-up time, right? That's the simplest version of eye discipline. That's it. And we're not seeing it all the time. So then you got to like start working your way down. Well, why is it? Does Caleb know, hey, we don't need to hold the center fielder? No, he probably knows. Or is it like, okay, Caleb's more, okay, hey, this is an option route backside. It's a 9-stop. Man, we can convert it to a comeback. Or guess what? We're going to convert it to a takeoff against a true tough corner, right? So then, okay, maybe he's uncertain of what route he's getting, so that's why he wants to get his eyes there earlier. The safety gets over the top. It turns into a go. Then he throws the go. They make a play on it. But a lot of it's like, it's hard because Caleb has the eye discipline issue, right? Like, hey, he's not doing the right thing with his eyes. But there's so much more that goes into it from a coaching standpoint, which is why for me, it's like, I'll say something like, I don't understand why his eyes aren't great. And people then take it as like, oh, you're defending Caleb because it could be coaching, right? We could not be telling him, hey, no matter what, hold the center field safety. Because if what we're telling him is, hey, hold the center field safety on the takeoff, but don't hold the center field safety on the 9-stop, DJ Moore reads it wrong. And instead of running a 9-stop, runs a takeoff. Well, Caleb's eyes were correct based on how we communicated it to him. So to me, it's like, where am I seeing it? Sorry, I'm like, all over the place, but where am I seeing it? It's everywhere, from the simplest version of that to, hey, we're running smash or a version of smash where we're trying to control that corner and he's one skipping and he's immediately going to the hitch versus recognizing, okay, hey, I need to go smash corner down to the hitch. And guess what? The smash corner was there. So I think it's showing up everywhere. And I don't think, again, it's just like, I'm not ready to indict him on it because I don't know what's getting communicated. And it feels like it's too consistent of an issue to then, for him to not correct something that's then being communicated, hey, correct this. That then to me is where I think it's more coaching than him having an issue that like he's willingly doing. Like that wouldn't make sense to me.
Tim Jenkins, outstanding information as always, well presented. Much